Saint Thérèse of Lisieux once said that the greatest mistake a soul can make is believing that Jesus asks for something complicated. According to her, what he truly wants is so simple, so small, that most people overlook it entirely. One quiet evening in the Carmelite convent, Thérèse learned this truth in a way she never forgot. It wasn't through a vision filled with thunder or light. It wasn't through miracles or extraordinary ecstasies. It came in the only language Jesus ever used with her: gentleness. Thérèse had spent the entire day performing small chores, sweeping the hallway, cleaning the refectory, mending a sister's torn veil. Her back ached slightly, her hands were tired, and she felt the faint discouragement that comes after a day of unnoticed sacrifices. She slipped into the dim chapel after Compline, hoping to find a moment of rest. The candle flames flickered softly. The wooden pews creaked as she knelt. And for a long moment she said nothing. She just breathed. Then, like a delicate warmth spreading across her heart, she felt Jesus draw near. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't a voice that someone else could hear. It was that unmistakable interior presence, the way Jesus spoke to her soul quietly, intimately, almost shyly. And as soon as he came, she whispered with childlike honesty, "Jesus, what do you want from me? Truly?" The question did not come from pride or fear. It came from longing, from the deep, aching desire she carried since childhood to give Jesus everything he deserved. She expected silence, or perhaps some gentle rebuke for the tiny imperfections she always noticed in herself. Instead, she felt Jesus say something that stunned her. "I want your littleness." Thérèse froze. She had spent her entire life trying to understand what God wanted from her: sacrifices, perfection, strength, holiness, heroic virtue. And yet Jesus had asked for none of these, only littleness. Thérèse lowered her head, overwhelmed. She felt Jesus continue, with a tenderness that felt like a hand on her cheek. Heaven is not earned by the great, but received by the small. And the smallest thing you offer me with love becomes greater than the grandest deeds done without me. Her heart tightened, not with sadness, but with relief, like someone hearing the truth they had been searching for their entire life. Jesus was not asking for perfection, not asking for success, not asking for extraordinary works. He was asking for a heart small enough to let him enter, and for Thérèse that changed everything. The chapel remained still around her, but something inside Thérèse had opened like a flower touched by sudden light. She stayed kneeling, afraid to move, afraid to breathe too loudly, as though the smallest movement might break the delicate thread of grace connecting her to Jesus. "Your littleness," she whispered, trying to understand. "Lord, why do you ask for something so small?" Jesus' response came with a tenderness that felt almost like a smile. "Because only the small can be carried." Thérèse felt her heart tremble. It was a truth she had sensed her whole life, but never dared to say aloud, that she was not capable of great penances, or heroic feats, or grand gestures of holiness. She was ordinary, fragile, sensitive, easily discouraged. And yet Jesus was telling her that this was not a defect, it was the path. The chapel's dim light danced softly across the crucifix. Thérèse lifted her gaze toward it, half expecting Jesus to speak through the cross itself. But he remained in her heart, speaking with the intimacy of someone who had always known her deepest fears. "The world believes I ask for greatness," he said, "but I ask for trust." Thérèse placed a hand over her chest. "Trust," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "Yes," Jesus continued, "when a soul is great in its own eyes, it tries to climb to heaven. But when a soul is small, it lets itself be lifted." A warmth spread through her, the kind that made her eyes fill with tears before she could stop them. She remembered her childhood prayers, her simple desires to love Jesus the way a child loves, with innocence, not strength, with confidence, not achievement. "Then, and the way to heaven is childhood?" she asked softly. "For those who desire me," Jesus answered, "yes." Thérèse inhaled sharply. She understood. Heaven was not a distant reward for the flawless. It was the natural home of the childlike, the ones who accepted love rather than trying to earn it. Jesus continued, "I do not ask for spiritual athletes. I ask for children who come to me with empty hands." Thérèse closed her eyes. Her hands, calloused from simple chores, trembling slightly from emotion, opened unconsciously on her lap. Empty, small, unimpressive, exactly what Jesus wanted. "And what must I do to remain little?" she asked. For a moment, the chapel felt wrapped in a silence so deep that her heart thudded loudly in her ears. Then Jesus said, "Do everything with love and accept everything with humility. Littleness is not weakness. It is freedom from the need to be great." Thérèse felt as though someone had untied a knot that had been inside her for years. Jesus wasn't asking her to climb. He was asking her to rest in his arms. The silence in the chapel deepened, but it wasn't heavy. It felt like being wrapped in the kind of stillness children rest in, effortless, natural, unforced. Thérèse breathed it in, letting the gentleness settle inside her. Jesus' words echoed softly through her heart. Littleness is freedom. She didn't fully understand. Not yet. "Lord," she whispered, "if littleness is freedom, then why do so many souls try to be great?" Jesus' response came like a warm breeze. "Because they are afraid." "Afraid of what?" she asked. "Of needing me." Thérèse's eyes widened. She felt Jesus' sorrow, his compassion, his longing for souls who believed they had to impress him instead of trusting him. "Many souls," he continued, "think they must bring me offerings polished by their own strength. They forget I prefer the offerings shaped by their weakness." Thérèse lowered her head, tears gathering again. Her whole life she had battled the belief that she was not enough, not disciplined enough, not strong enough, not impressive enough. But here Jesus was telling her that these very things were the reason she could love him deeply. "Those who want heaven," Jesus said, "must stop measuring themselves." She felt the truth hit her core like a gentle shock. How many times had she judged her spiritual life by her failures? How many times had she compared herself to saints who performed heroic penances? How often had she asked herself if she was doing enough? "Stop counting," Jesus said, as if reading her thoughts. "Stop calculating. Stop weighing your worth." Thérèse pressed her hand over her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. She was realizing something enormous. Jesus wanted her heart, not her performance. "But Lord," she whispered shakily, "what about sacrifices? What about hard penances? What about denying myself for love of you?" Jesus' answer came with surprising gentleness. "Sacrifice is precious, only when it is small enough to be filled with love." Thérèse understood instantly. Great penances can become trophies, small sacrifices become kisses. She remembered sweeping floors without being seen, carrying buckets of cold water with numb fingers, choosing softness when she wanted to answer harshly, smiling when she felt forgotten. Tiny things, invisible things, things no one praised. Jesus whispered, "These are the treasures of heaven, not because they are great, but because they are given freely." Thérèse felt warmth bloom inside her. Something in her soul, something that had always strained to be worthy, finally relaxed. "Jesus," she said softly, "then I will give you my smallness." And for the first time in her life, she felt that this was exactly what she was created to do. The soft glow of the chapel candles flickered as Thérèse knelt deeper into prayer. Her heart felt strangely light, almost buoyant, as though Jesus had lifted a weight she never realized she was carrying. But she also sensed there was more. His presence hovered close, not finished, not satisfied with her first understanding. "Jesus," she murmured, "if you want my littleness, what do you want me to do with it?" His answer came without hesitation. "Let me use it." A shiver went through her. Her littleness, used by God. Her fragility, useful. Her limitations, instruments in his hands. She could scarcely understand it. Jesus continued, "Souls think they must give me strength. I ask only for permission to love them in their weakness." Thérèse pressed a hand to her chest. This was the opposite of everything she once feared, the opposite of every expectation she believed God placed on her. Lord, is weakness not an obstacle? It becomes an obstacle only when a soul hides it. His words pierced her gently. She remembered every moment she tried to pretend she wasn't hurt, every forced smile, every silent fear. Every time she told herself she should be stronger, holier, more impressive. Thérèse, Jésus whispered, I do not ask you to be strong. I ask you to be transparent. Her breath caught. Transparency had always terrified her. Being seen felt like being exposed. But Jesus was not asking for exposure. He was asking for honesty. Let me see your poverty, he said. Let me see your wounds. Let me see your doubts. I do not turn away. She closed her eyes, her lips trembling. Every part of her that felt unworthy, insufficient, disappointing. He wanted all of it. Those who want heaven, Jesus said, must stop pretending to be whole. Her heart shook, not out of fear, but out of recognition. My greatest saints, he continued, were not those who impressed heaven. They were those who allowed heaven to fill the spaces they could not. Thérèse bowed deeply, forehead nearly touching her clasped hands. Then, Lord, the way to heaven is not climbing, but letting myself be carried. Yes, Jesus said softly, and letting yourself be carried means giving me your permission to love you as you truly are. The tears Thérèse had been holding back finally escaped, sliding down her cheeks. My God, she whispered, then heaven is not for the perfect, but for the transparent. The words settled over her like a mantle. She knew now. What Jesus asked from those who desire heaven was not spiritual achievement. It was permission. Permission for him to be everything they could not be. The moment Thérèse surrendered her littleness, something in the chapel shifted. Not a sound, not a light, but a clarity, as though Jesus had been waiting for her to reach this point before revealing the next step. She remained kneeling, her tears drying slowly on her cheeks. Her heart felt open, unguarded, completely defenseless, and yet she sensed she was safer in that vulnerability than she had ever been in her strength. Lord, she whispered, if you ask for littleness, trust, transparency, what do you desire most of all from the soul that wants heaven? Jesus answered without hesitation, love. Thérèse's breath trembled. The word was simple, almost too simple, and yet it carried the weight of eternity. Love, she repeated softly. Yes, Jesus said, but not the love the world imagines, not emotion, not sensation, not bursts of devotion that vanish with the wind. His tone deepened, tender and steady. I ask for a love that remains when everything else disappears. Thérèse understood instantly. She had experienced spiritual dryness before, mornings when prayer felt empty, evenings when her heart felt distant, days when she wondered if God had stepped away. And each time she feared it meant she had failed. But now Jesus was explaining what she never dared to believe. That love is truer when it gives without feeling, he said. It becomes pure when you offer it through dryness, through fatigue, through silence. Her lips parted. A quiet ache rose inside her, not pain, but longing for this kind of love, the kind that doesn't depend on consolation. Jesus continued, the soul that truly wants heaven must love me in the ordinary moments, not just the extraordinary ones. Thérèse saw her day in her mind, folding laundry, enduring impatience from another sister, walking in the cold corridor with sore feet, offering a forced smile when she felt unseen. Small things, invisible things. Lord, do these small acts matter so much? They matter more than you imagine, Jesus replied. The doors of heaven open for souls who love in what seems insignificant. A warmth spread through her chest. She felt almost like a child listening to a secret meant only for her. Jesus' voice softened even more. Heaven is not the reward of great achievements. It is the home of those who choose love repeatedly in the smallest moments. Thérèse lifted her gaze, eyes shimmering. Then, Jesus, the ordinary becomes the way. Yes, he whispered. For the souls who truly desire heaven, I ask for this, faithful love in the smallest things. because the smallest things are what shape eternity. Thérèse pressed her hand against her heart. She finally understood. Heaven begins with sweeping floors, folding linens, smiling when tired, forgiving quickly and loving quietly. Heaven begins with the small. The chapel felt warmer now, as though Jesus' words had changed even the temperature of the air. Thérèse remained kneeling, letting each truth sink deeper into her soul, carving pathways she never knew existed. She could feel Jesus inviting her onward, gently, patiently, like a father teaching a child to walk. "Jesus," she whispered, "if love in small things is what you desire, then why do so many souls miss it?" His answer came with a quiet sadness. Because they look too high. Thérèse's heart tightened. She understood instinctively what he meant. The temptation to seek dramatic holiness, extraordinary acts, grand gestures that shine brightly, but fade quickly. Jesus continued, "Souls think they must do something impressive to reach me. They forget I chose a life hidden, poor, unnoticed." Thérèse felt the truth swallow her breath. Jesus had lived 30 years of silence. No miracles, no visible glory, just small acts of work, obedience, service, and love. "Those who truly want heaven," he said, "must desire to walk the same path." Thérèse looked up toward the crucifix. She had always loved the infant Jesus, always felt drawn to his littleness, but now she saw the connection clearly. Jesus was small not only in Bethlehem but in Nazareth, and in the hidden corners of every humble act. She pressed her fingertips to her lips, trembling. "But Lord, what if I fail in these small things? What if I forget? What if my love is weak?" "You will fail," he said gently. "You will forget. Your love will be weak." Thérèse lowered her head, ashamed, until Jesus added, "And that is why I ask for your littleness." Her breath caught. He wasn't expecting perfection. He wasn't expecting flawless consistency. He wasn't expecting strength that never wavers. He was expecting sincerity. "Each time you fall," Jesus said, "let your smallness bring you back to me. Do not hide. Do not grow discouraged. Return like a child who runs back into his mother's arms." Thérèse felt tears prick her eyes. She had always feared disappointing God, always worried that her flaws made her unworthy. But now she understood. The returning was more precious than the falling. "Discouragement," Jesus said, "closes more doors to heaven than sin does." The words stunned her. She repeated them under her breath. "Discouragement closes more doors." "Yes," Jesus continued, "because I can heal every sin, but a discouraged heart refuses to let me." Thérèse pressed her hands together tightly. This was the tenderness she had always sensed, the God who loved her not because she was flawless, but because she was his. "Then what do you want me to do when I fall?" she asked softly. Jesus answered with a smile she felt more than saw, "Give me your failure, and begin again with love." The chapel felt sacred in a new way, not because of visions or miracles, but because Jesus had revealed a truth that overturned everything Thérèse once believed, that heaven belonged not to the flawless, but to the small-hearted who keep beginning again. She wiped her cheeks gently, then whispered, "Jesus, if beginning again is so important, why do so many souls give up?" He answered with a sorrow that felt like a sigh inside her heart. "Because they believe holiness is a ladder." Thérèse's eyebrows lifted slightly. A ladder. She knew exactly what he meant. Climbing, striving, comparing, counting steps. "Souls climb," Jesus continued, "until they become weary. They look down, see how far they still are from heaven, and despair." She nodded. It was true. So many around her, even in the convent, judged themselves by how high they felt they had reached. They carried invisible burdens of expectation. They feared falling. They feared being found ordinary. She had felt that fear too. But heaven, Jesus said, is not reached by climbing. Thérèse's heart fluttered. He was about to reveal something important, something she sensed would define her entire spiritual life. "It is reached," he said, "by letting me carry you." Her breath stilled. Jesus' voice softened even more. The soul that tries to climb will tire. The soul that lets itself be carried will arrive. Thérèse closed her eyes, stunned by the simplicity and power of his words. But Lord, how does a soul let itself be carried? With trust, he said, trust so deep that you no longer measure your progress, nor fear your weakness, nor rely on your strength. Thérèse understood. This was the little way, not ambition, not striving, not perfectionism, but surrender. Jesus continued, "Those who want heaven must desire me more than their own idea of holiness." That sentence shook her. How often had she worried more about being holy than about loving Jesus? How often had she placed spiritual self-image above intimacy with him? Holiness, Jesus said, is not the soul becoming admirable, it is the soul becoming mine. A warmth blossomed in her chest. It dismantled years of pressure, years of feeling small, years believing holiness belonged to others. "Thérèse," Jesus said tenderly, "your small way is the straight path to heaven because it trusts me to be the one who saves, transforms, and carries." She whispered, "Then what do you ask from me today?" And Jesus, "Let me be everything, and let yourself be small." Her heart trembled, not with fear, but with awe. This was what Jesus asked of those who truly want heaven, not a long list of accomplishments, but a soul willing to rest in his arms. The candle flames flickered softly as Thérèse lifted her face from prayer. Something had changed in her expression, a new clarity, a gentle peace that came not from effort, but from surrender. Jesus remained near, silent and patient, as if waiting for the next small opening in her heart. "Jesus," and she whispered, "if the way to heaven is to be little, then how should I live each day?" Her question was not anxious. It was longing, a child's longing to please the one she loved. Jesus' presence warmed the space around her, as though the air itself had drawn closer. "Live each day as a gift you return to me," he said. Thérèse's heart softened. A gift? She had never thought of her ordinary days like that. "But Lord," she asked quietly, "what about difficult days? When I am tired, irritated, distracted, or when I feel far from you?" "Then give me the day exactly as it is," Jesus replied, "not as you wish it had been." A tremor of recognition passed through her. How many times had she tried to fix her day before offering it to God? How often had she waited to be more patient, more focused, more holy, before daring to pray? Jesus continued, "I do not ask for perfect days. I ask for given days." Thérèse pressed her hand to her heart, letting the truth settle. He was telling her that even her interior chaos could be offered, that he did not reject fatigue or frustration or weakness, but transformed them. "And what should I do with the little irritations?" she asked. "The small injustices, the difficult people, the moments that sting." Jesus answered with the simplicity that always disarmed her. "Offer them to me." She lowered her gaze, thinking deeply. "But Lord, isn't that too small?" "It is exactly what I desire," he replied. "Heaven grows in a soul when it gives me what others throw away, the delay, the inconvenience, the hidden work, the quiet pain." A warmth spread through her chest. Then Jesus added, "The souls who truly want heaven must learn to turn the smallest things into eternity." The words filled her like a fragrance. Nothing she did would be wasted. No irritation, no unnoticed kindness, no silent sacrifice. All of it mattered. Jesus continued, "Heaven begins when you choose to love in every detail, even the ones no one sees." Thérèse inhaled slowly, her eyes glowing with a new serenity. She finally understood. Heaven was not a distant reward. It was a way of living the present moment with him inside it. The chapel had grown still again, but this time the silence felt like an invitation, as if heaven were leaning closer, waiting for the next truth to unfold. Thérèse wiped her cheeks softly. She felt lighter, steadier, more anchored in Jesus' tenderness than ever before. Yet she sensed he had one more lesson, something deeper, something that touched the very essence of what he asks from souls who desire heaven. "Jesus," she whispered, "you have told me to be little, to trust, to offer the small things, to begin again after every failure. But what do you ask when the soul feels nothing, when prayer is dry, when love feels only like effort? She feared the question. It was the question of her life, the mystery she had carried for years. Jesus did not hesitate. His answer came calm, warm, and steady. I ask for fidelity. Thérèse closed her eyes. She felt the beauty and weight of that single word. Jesus continued, The soul that loves me only when it feels me does not yet understand heaven. But the soul that remains faithful when I am silent, that soul has already begun to live in paradise. A wave of emotion rose in her chest. Faithfulness, he said, is the love that keeps its eyes on me even in darkness. It is the soul saying, I choose you when every feeling disappears. That is the love that consoles my heart. Thérèse breathed out slowly. She had known this darkness, nights when prayer felt empty, mornings when God seemed distant, seasons when she wondered if her faith was only imagination. Now Jesus was telling her something astonishing. These moments are not punishments, he said gently. They are invitations. Invitations to what? She asked. To love me for my sake, not for consolations, not for emotion, not for spiritual sweetness, but because I am God, and you are mine. Her heart trembled. It felt like discovering the center of a hidden universe. Jesus continued, When you feel nothing and still choose me, when prayer is dry and you still lift your heart, that is the love that opens heaven. Thérèse felt tears spill softly down her face. She finally understood. Darkness was not abandonment, it was opportunity. It was purification. It was love without illusion. Jesus, she whispered, then the soul that wants heaven must not fear dryness. No, he replied. Dryness is the proof of mature love. Consolations teach you I love you. Dryness teaches you to love me. The words wrapped around her soul like a mantle. This was what Jesus asked from those who truly wanted heaven. Love that remains. Love that chooses. Love that endures without sensation. A love that is pure because it is free. The chapel seemed to glow with a quiet radiance now. Not a light that touched the eyes, but a warmth that filled the heart. Thérèse knelt without moving, letting Jesus' words echo through every part of her being. It felt as though he had opened the deepest doors of heaven to her, not with visions or thunder, but with truths simple enough for a child to carry. After a long silence, she whispered, Jesus, then tell me plainly, for the soul that truly wants heaven, but what is the one thing you desire most? Jesus drew near, so close that she felt his presence like a breath against her cheek. One thing, he said, holds all the others. Let me love you. Thérèse felt the words strike her like gentle lightning, soft, bright, overwhelming. She had expected difficulty, sacrifice, heroism, effort, but Jesus was asking for something far more intimate, to let him love her, to allow his heart to be the source of her holiness, to receive instead of trying to achieve. Lord, she whispered, trembling, but how does a soul let you love it? By accepting its poverty, Jesus answered, by giving me its wounds, its fears, its failures, by coming to me empty and allowing my love to fill the emptiness. Thérèse bowed her head. Her emptiness, the part she always tried to hide, was the very place Jesus wanted to enter. He continued, Heaven belongs to those who let themselves be loved, not because they are worthy, not because they are strong, but because they give me permission to be everything. Tears slipped down her cheeks again, quiet, soft like dew running over petals. She felt small, she felt fragile, she felt unworthy, and yet she felt completely, utterly held. Thérèse, Jesus said, this is what I ask from every soul that desires heaven. Come to me without masks, without accomplishments, without pride, without fear. Come as you are, and let me make you what you cannot make yourself. She pressed her hands against her heart. My Jesus, then even my littleness becomes a path to you. Yes, he whispered, because littleness leaves room for love. The chapel fell silent again. But it was a living silence, full of presence, full of promise. Thérèse remained kneeling long after the sense of Jesus' presence faded, not in sadness but in awe, knowing she had received the secret she longed for her entire life. Those who want heaven must let themselves be loved. Not greatly, not perfectly, not heroically, but simply, like a child resting in the arms of God.